Wow, what an afternoon. I don't know about you, but my head is full of ideas and thoughts and things I've just learned. So I hope you feel the same. So a number of things that strike me around all of this is, first of all, let's go back to why we actually put this program together. It was really, obviously, to stimulate all our thinking on this question of women in technology, women in business, women in disruption at a time where we're seeing so much change around the world. And the whole idea was really to give us all a whole lot of input and thoughts from a number of people who you've seen here this afternoon on the panel, and then Margaret, so that when we go and have time tonight, or I was going to say drinks tonight, but it's actually more than drinks. When we have time together tonight, the whole idea was really to continue that conversation, because I think there's been so much thinking stimulated in all of that. So the next phase is really all of us talking to each other in a bit of a different setting with proper light and the ocean and, you know, nice environment, but really let's continue this conversation. The other thing that really struck me is how similar, I suppose, the issues are that come up in the context of women in business and women in technology, no matter where you are. So some of us in this room, in fact, were just recently in Shanghai at a women entrepreneurial meeting, which is a masterclass that EY is running. And, you know, very, very similar conversations were had there. I'm reminded of the Strategic Growth Forum in Africa just a few months ago, where, again, similar conversations were had among the women who were talking about starting businesses there and what challenges they were facing. And so often in those conversations, we don't just talk about what are the numbers of our businesses or what's the revenue look like, what's the profit numbers and so on. I mean, you look at this afternoon, so quickly the conversation went to how does it work with the children? What kind of ecosystem, friendships, partnerships, and so on do we need to be successful? How do we get the right balance into our lives and so on, which are fundamentally very, very different conversations than I normally have in my day-to-day business meetings. And, you know, hopefully you appreciated some of that. So I'm always struck by how similar that is, no matter where we are in the world. I have to say I'm always amazed about the conversation around men will understand these issues when they have daughters. There's just this tiny little thing we seem to overlook in all of this, which is men have had daughters since the beginning of time. Okay, and so I always think this is not a new thing that men have daughters, right? They've always had daughters, and so I'm a little bit more urgent about making these changes. I can't wait again, you know, for as long as the beginning of time. So while I think it's absolutely true that men get very different insights, we can't wait for that. And so underpinning, I suppose, this Women's Summit really has been also the recognition that more and more women are in leadership roles. Many of you are in leadership roles in your businesses. You lead your own businesses. And that means we can't actually wait for others to do it. I mean, I think something similar was just said by Margaret at the end. You know, I mean, who is going to do it? Well, it's us. It's us who are going to do it. And so I think it's very much about hopefully leaving you with a whole range of questions and thoughts about what you will do to make sure, first of all, your businesses are ready to deal with disruption and technology. Secondly, what you're already doing or what you will do to make it possible for women in your organizations to be promoted, to get opportunities, to, you know, bring themselves to work and be able to manage, I suppose, their lives as well as their work environments. One of the things here at the World Entrepreneur of the Year event is that, you know, I mentioned earlier, we have better questions everywhere because we don't believe that the solutions are as easy as they used to be. And so I thought I'd leave you with some better questions for yourself to think about as we go into the afternoon and as you summarize, I suppose, for yourself what you got out of the session this afternoon. And so those questions are things like, well, first of all, following Margaret. I mean, I don't know about you, but I want Margaret to be my mother when I grow up because she's tough and she's wise. And I think that would be fabulous to have around. So the first question is, do you have a game of your own? How would you answer that question? I think it's a fabulous question because we all do a lot of things, but do you have a game of your own? How do you do things elegantly and get stuff done? So that was Jacqueline de Roya's commentary. I won't ask the question about the body parts she referred to and the question of whether we had those. But how do you do that? How do you get things done elegantly? Are you an alpha-zilla or do you follow your own values? Again, do you go your own way or do you follow the culture of your organization? Do you make sure you have a sponsor or a mentor? Do you know the difference? And are you actively following, I suppose, the model of really having a sponsor? Do you ask for enough money when you get a chance? I think that's a big one. Not just, do you ask for enough money, I don't know, in terms of the next promotions? Do you ask enough money in terms of, for enough money in terms of financing your business? Lots and lots of scenarios, I think, in which that's really, really important. Then this is definitely one of my favorite, and the people I work with now, I keep talking about this all the time. Do you read to get on top of what's happening around the world? There is so much happening around us. So to stay ahead of that, I think it's inevitable that we all have to do that. Do you gather data all the time to understand the zeitgeist of our time? Do you do that? And do you make it conscious? Do you actually really become aware of the fact that you do it? So a great question there from Margaret. Do you build networks that can help you build, expand, and adjust your business to change? That came up in pretty much every conversation. How do you tap into the collective knowledge around you, the people in your organization, other people you can learn from? And our own research, for example, recently in Asia-Pac clearly showed that one of the things that was holding women back from scaling their businesses was, in fact, not having the right advisory board, not having the right networks, and not being able to tap into other people in order to get the right advice. So do you build those networks, and how do you use them? Do you make a special effort to be surrounded by people who are different? And Margaret added to that, and people who disagree with you. Because, disagreement isn't always such a great thing. At least in some cultures, it's very uncomfortable. And, but it is, of course, that disagreement that gets you to completely different questions, completely different viewpoints. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but I feel after a disagreement, I might modify my point of view, even if at the time I vehemently argued that I was right. Are you helpful to others so they can activate their own dreams? I think that's a great one. Is your organization a helpful organization where problems get solved? Another one from Margaret. And do you create that organization? Do you model that? Do you show? Do you lead by example and show that that's really important? And that what I suppose that also implies is, I guess, what was discussed several times, which is, what is it that creates the right environment or the right conditions for others to succeed, and what helped us to succeed? And then, are we truly listening? I thought that was another great one from Margaret. And in particular, are we listening to what's not being said directly, what's not being said openly, what's not being said to us? Are we listening to that? I think that's a fantastic one. And yeah, of course, do you pay attention to the good things you do? I think that's a really important one. Do you pay attention to yourself? I think probably in the last comments there by Margaret, we all, found some familiarity there in terms of doing maybe too many things. Do we get enough recovery time? Do we use time properly? And so on. So I think they were all really important questions. But I guess my summary would be, well, first of all, no one else is going to do it but us. No one else is going to do it for us. It is really very much about reflecting on those questions, not on behalf of others, but on behalf of ourselves. And so I would really encourage you to do that and to think about what some of those questions might mean for you. And then at the same time, I just want to close on the comment that Elmer Coleman made, which is this whole this whole issue around change around us is moving at such an incredible speed that we can't actually wait for others to take the action or for others to have the recognition of what that might mean for our businesses or our own lives. And it is really now, I think, that we have to come to terms with the vast changes around us and how we will respond to that as individuals, as leaders, as businesswomen, as mothers, as whatever we are. And so I'd really encourage you to think in those terms and invite you to continue that conversation tonight when we go to Regine's place. Thank you.